Okay, well, thank you for coming on what is a rather damp and wet Wednesday evening, isn't it? Yes, I've just come back from 2 weeks on holiday, so please bear with me. So many of us have sat through presentations like this and thought, well, that's a load of bloody flannel. Well, I've news for you. This one really is full of flannel. Well, 249,531 flannels to be precise. And that's the amount that we sell each year. And of course, teapots, knives, well, more forks than knives, the humble fascinator, and the last red coat in Debenhams. For those of you that live in a tit for vacuum, a fashionista's guide to the fascinator and its origins, and how on earth you make a news story from it and get the word trending will come up a little later. But before I go into further detail, I want to explain that what may look like a random selection of unconnected news stories are actually part of a considered award-winning PR strategy. So in the words of the song, let's start at the very beginning. 5 years ago, the Debenhams press office was perceived as lazy, irrelevant, impersonal, inaccessible, browbeaten, mediocre at best, and lacklustre. I'm pleased to say that I wasn't in charge at the time. So it was of no surprise that it was outperformed by all of its competitors. A completely new team and a holistic approach to PR ensured that these perceptions have now been turned on the head. And we've had a few gongs off the back of it from the likes of corporate comms and the PRCA. This, in no small part, is thanks to a team that reflects the audience it initially communicates to, news desks and social media channels. It literally stands out from the crowd. Not only does this strategy contribute towards a positive reputational measure, but drives sales and also puts cash in the tills. To deliver this, the team explores every single opportunity across fashion, news, business, features, online, as well as social media channels to communicate Debenhams' unique point of view. As such, the team reflects a news desk structure, or some may say, in some cases, an agency one. We were just talking about this upstairs, Tony. Each person looks after specific areas from around the business, from cosmetics through to our cafes. And as such, these guys attend those team weekly meetings, so they're very much embedded within the business areas that they look after. And it's essential that they're embedded, but also visible within the business. We have a news generative approach that's in this digital age, some may perceive as old-fashioned. For me, with more and more content-hungry channels, I don't think it's ever been as relevant as it is today. And talking of today, we snap at the ankles Jack Russell-like of the market leader Marks and Spencer's. A retailer I would caveat is talked about for much of the time for all the wrong reasons. Over the last year, Debenhams delivered 300 print cuttings a week, a media value of 340 million, and 6 billion opportunities to see in terms of the brand. And just to contextualise the size of the team, because I appreciate people from different backgrounds and different industries and things like that, I have a team of 8 people, and my budget is 1.5 million. So the self-congratulatory back-patting bit is done, you'll be glad to hear. And it's time to share with you some of the stories that, these guys have built as standing out from the crowd. Hopefully, after you've seen them, you will also agree. So a news hound even, back to my John Craven days, a news hound approach, show my age now, a news hound approach is the core to delivering some of the stories that I'm about to talk about. It's essential that they tap into the zeitgeist to encourage not only news coverage but also other parties with a vested interest to take and share with their followers, but also take and share in terms of other media as well. It's water cooler PR. I want people to talk about Debenhams down the pub, over lunch, with their mates, on the bus, via the Facebook pages, at conferences like this. In fact, whatever their communication method of choice is. Now, zeitgeist is easier to pin down than I think than it is, actually the other way around. Zeitgeist is easier to say than it is to actually pin down. It's not an exact science, but more of an instinct, a gut feeling. And as such, the team has their Geist Zeited each week, and the sessions form part of our weekly planning. Scanning the papers and social media channels for anything interesting, ranging from what the government has announced through to Jordan's latest marriage, and she's been on the, I think it must be a record now, she's been married for about 4 months and it's the same guy. And the team brings snippets to the weekly meetings to talk about what's happened to them on a day-to-day basis. While often valuable scanning newspapers and the sort of social media channels, what you're finding is sometimes a little past its sell-by date, as the horse may have already bolted. So a large part of our planning and weekly meetings would look like idle gossip to the untrained eye. And the team talk about what they bought at the weekend, what they drank at the weekend, what they watched at the weekend, where they went at the weekend, what they ate at the weekend, who they did it with, and who they told about it. And it's from this melting pot that the genesis of many of our stories are born, and how we ensure that the zeitgeist box is well and truly ticked. So we'll come on to some examples. So on to the story. So traditional dining etiquette, for centuries the hallmark of a gentleman, clearly was disappearing after the team had discovered that large main meal forks were outselling their matching knives by almost 2 to 1. So this has come out of the guys actually embedded within the team that looks after our particular home offer. So after scratching around for a reason, it became very evident that the Americans were blamed, or were to blame in this case. And one other thing really was to blame, really, in terms of the way that people actually consume their evening meals. So we felt that the majority of people actually simply bought a ready meal, so the supermarkets were to blame as well. Sat down on their sofa, fork in hand, and basically were just shoveling their macaroni cheese or their whatever they bought directly into their mouths, or basically whatever they could actually eat with their fingers. So we launched this civilised dining campaign, which was designed hopefully to encourage people to use both a knife and a fork. Enlisted the help of Debrett's in terms of etiquette advice, and launched a good table manners campaign. Linked it also through social media in terms of offering advice from an online butler. And for those of you that are naive in terms of table etiquette, and I can't see anyone I could imagine that is in this room, you work from the outside. You work from the outside in. So a large amount of coverage sort of ensued off the back of this, and you can see examples here from the Metro, through to the Daily Telegraph, through to the Daily Star, who took the pizza option really in terms of people shoveling pizzas in their mouths, and also blaming Dominoes as well, so it created a debate really in terms of how we are sort of eating really in terms of modern society. Worked particularly well within the UK, but also worked particularly well abroad really in terms of the American press also commenting on it, and also the Australian press sort of commenting on it as well. The benefit of the particular story was that apart from a load of coverage raising the profile, that we actually sell forks. Off the back of this, there is now a parity really in terms of the number of knives and the number of forks that we actually sell. So, and to this day, that remains the same. Excuse me. But all these examples work particularly well in terms of traditional media, but also work fantastically well in terms of social media, in terms of creating a debate. We've moved on to this example being Save the Flannel. So years of declining sales brought the flannel, the once essential symbol of personal hygiene, to the brink of distinction. And for those of you under 30 that don't know what a flannel is, if you imagine what a large towel looks like and then condense it, it's this shape. And you used to rub, your mother used to wet it, rub soap on it, and then really attack your face with it. So unsurprisingly, the humble flannel was in decline. And again, this is just an example in terms of the teams working really, really closely with the business areas that they actually support. So we needed an advocate to talk about the flannels, because us saying flannels were fantastic. People will come back and say, well, yes, Debenhams, you sell flannels, so you would say that. So we found an unlikely supporter really in terms of beauty journalists. So Lucy Flanagan is Mangan, is an example. Flanagan is you can tell I've been on holiday for 10 days, so it's 10 days in Turkey, and right. So Lucy Mangan was brought on board to help save our flannels. So we enlisted a load of beauty journalists really in terms of expressing the virtues really in terms of the flannel. Now, seemingly, according to the beauty journalists, flannels are very good for your skin. They exfoliate, they cleanse, and they tone, all at the same time. So rather than paying a fortune really in terms of various beauty products, you can condense it all into a 25 centimetre square piece of toweling. Off the back of this, it created a great debate about whether, well, actually, is a flannel good for you or is a flannel not good for you? So loads of noise again, really, in terms of social media channels. The hashtag Save the Flannel campaign actually, the hashtag Save the Flannel actually trended when we launched this, and it is really about creating debate, and I'm not being afraid really in terms of creating a debate about whether people actually agree or whether people actually disagree really in terms of what you were saying. I'm pleased to say that we didn't have the success that we did have in terms of the knives and the forks, but flannels now, we increase sales in terms of across our stores within the UK and Ireland, and bizarrely Denmark, by 50% in relation to that particular product. Right, fascinators. So, as I said, the Save the Vein is a very sort of rich theme, really, in terms of in terms of our particular brand, in terms of the range of products that we actually sell. So the fascinator for the gentleman in the audience is a hat. a quite strange hat, I think. But I think the most famous person you will have seen wearing said fascinator is, I always get them muddled up. Is this Eugenie? It's Eugenie, isn't it, this one? Beatrice, I always get them muddled up. Case in point. Is Beatrice, who famously wore one at the royal wedding. That admittedly looks more like an intrauterine device and probably had the same pregnancy preventing effect as that said intrauterine device. But we sell more fascinators in the UK than anyone else. For the uninitiated, it's a small hat, and you can see some examples on these two guys here. So some bright spark at Ascot decided that after, well, Ascot's been going 200 years, but after 100 years, they decided to ban the fascinator from the royal enclosure. Even though the likes of the Queen and Camilla and said Princess actually like to wear them. So we weren't having any of that. So we launched a campaign to save the fascinator and took our process down to Ascot. So we had about 10 models wearing fascinators with Save the Fascinator placards that were marching up and down outside the gates of Ascot. We took about 100 fascinators down with us to Ascot and were liberally handing them out to anyone that would actually wear them and have their picture taken with them. Encourage people to tweet and also share this on social media channels in relation to promoting the Save the Fascinator campaign. This shot is, as you can see, is from Grazia, and again, it caught the imagination really in terms of the zeitgeist and piggybacking off the back of something someone else had actually done really in terms of banning the fascinator, which presented an opportunity for Debenhams as a brand to raise the profile that it sold more fascinators and also hats than anyone else within the UK, but also challenge the logic really in terms of saying that that you can no longer wear a fascinator at Ascot. Our fascinator sales went up, but unfortunately you can still no longer wear a fascinator in the royal enclosure at Ascot. So this time of year is the most competitive really in terms of going after the Christmas pound. If you weren't here tonight and you were sat at home watching Coronation Street or whatever else is on after Coronation Street, you would see Debenhams' latest offering, you would see Marks and Spencer's latest offering, you would see a whole host of other retailers really, their offerings really in terms of Christmas this year. This is talking about Christmas last year, so but if you were at home, Christmas really does start on the 6th of November. So bonfire night's out of the way, Halloween is out of the way, but you'll see from today that all the ads turn to a Christmas theme. There's always a battle really in terms of generating coverage off the back of it. Our coffers aren't as deep as the likes of Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis, whose ad last year, I think you remember, was a snowman. My favourite spoof of it was the Ann Summers spoof, where he disappeared off into the distance and came back towards the end of the ad with an empty box at the bottom of the floor that was vibrating, and she had a big smile on her face. So, so the battle really in terms of Christmas is not only just about the actual ads, but also about generating coverage. So throughout we've not advertised for 5 years at Christmas time. So the ad that you saw just then, 5 years, well, was the first ad that we'd done it in terms of Christmas for 5 years. So the business was keen that we generated as much coverage, but also as much conversation really in terms of the ad through traditional media channels that you can see here, but then also through social media channels as well. So the traditional stuff we encouraged. One, we did the straightforward thing really in terms of announcing that we actually had a TV ad for the first time in 5 years, but then also went through social media channels. So in terms of social media with Debenhams, and it was exactly the same with this ad, is that we have a first to approach really in terms of Facebook and Twitter. So we have about 500,000 people that follow us across 2 sites in terms of Facebook, and 50,000 people in terms of Twitter. So these guys get all this sort of stuff, first. Then we tend to follow with the Mail Online, with its ever-growing number of readers, which I think at the moment is about 112 million globally, the most successful newspaper website on the planet. But then we'll go to traditional media really in terms of following it up, which is a mixture of announcing it to the business press, but then also encouraging comparisons really in terms of ourselves and also other competitors. And I think I may have talked at the beginning about being a little bit brave, and I think this is an example really in terms of us being brave and offering ourselves up really in terms of comparisons with other retailers in relation to Christmas. The positive element of it was that we came out as the most traditional. Waitrose came out as the most smug. But whether you come out as traditional or smug, I think it is creating noise and it's creating debate around your particular brand. So loads of coverage in relation to the announcement, and people were seeing the ad on TV. As you saw from the ad, the focus was this young lady over there in a red coat, which was a Jonathan Saunders red coat, and that was the focus throughout the ad, and the red coat took you through her journey home to Christmas. So how do you keep the momentum going really in terms of in terms of generating news coverage in relation to these particular this particular ad campaign? Because after all, it's been announced, it's had coverage, the Sun's done comparisons, the Mail's done comparisons, the Telegraph's done comparisons, all the marketing titles have done comparisons. So there was a challenge really in terms of the business about how you keep the momentum going. This coat sold more coats than any other coat in Debenhams history. It was the fastest selling coat that we had ever sold, from the point of view that, and this is prior to Marks and Spencer's pink coats, the red coat was it. Sold out within hours, to be perfectly honest. Sold out online, sold out in store, but to keep the excitement and the momentum going about Debenhams in relation to Christmas, it was about using social media that actually delivered that for us. And the way that we did this was that we created the hashtag #TheLastRedCoat, and we offered up the last red coat on our social media channels in terms of asking our followers to either nominate themselves or nominate other people who actually they felt deserved the last red coat, as it were, in Britain. The last red coat trended on 2 occasions, and at a time when, just to contextualise this, Prince Harry was all over the place, literally, with his kit off in Vegas, if anyone remembers that, and there was all those. So we were competing with that. So the Barclays Ticket Tuesday was a promoted post. So it shows you really how you can connect traditional media, but then also link it to social media, and how all these the two things really do interact really to the benefit of a brand. Save the teapot. We found out again that teapot sales were on the decline within our stores within the UK and Ireland, and again launched a campaign really in terms of saving the teapot. The bastion really, I think, in terms of being British is a good cup of tea. So it was about tapping into this zeitgeist really in terms of everyone's had a cup of tea in their life, that it's integral really in terms of British society. And the fact that the vessel that you brew your perfect cup of tea in was no longer selling anymore certainly attracted the attention really in terms of the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph, as you would imagine, but also the Daily Mirror. But then also it migrated as well in terms of the Holmes titles and Holmes Press. So we launched a campaign to save the teapot, and as we all know in terms of PR, advocacy is really important really in terms of promoting a message or projecting a message, and it's much more powerful someone else saying it on your behalf in terms of the way that these guys have said that. So the great thing in terms of Save the Teapot was, off the back of this, was about launching a campaign that launched initially first in terms of Facebook and also Twitter, with a hashtag about saving the teapot. The great thing was that off the back of that, the Tetley Tea Folk joined in, Twinings joined in, Taylors of Harrogate joined in. So anyone that makes tea within the UK also jumped on the bandwagon really in terms of trying to save the teapot. Off the back of this, you had a load of conversational noise about teapots, about tea, and also the Debenhams brand. I'm glad to say that we had more success in terms of the teapot than we did with the flannel, and our teapot sales are back where they used to be. Again, off the back of a civilised tea drinking campaign, and the likes of the Tetley Tea Folk and Twinings, and also an etiquette expert in the guise of Liz Brewer, who gently reminded people how you make a proper cup of tea. And seemingly, I always get this the wrong way around, seemingly the milk goes in after. Yeah, after. I like my milk in first. I like my tea like baby tea. So that's, yeah, exactly. So that's cool. So the water cooler conversations we were talking about at the beginning of the presentation. Ooh, there you are, you see. No, yeah. So we've had some sort of light-hearted examples really in terms of some of the stuff that we've been doing fairly recently. And I say light-hearted, but they've all supported the business and raised the profile of the brand and promoted our reputation. I think one of the things that I am most proudest of over the last 4 years is the work that we've done in relation to inclusivity. And inclusivity is the vein, is the glue really that holds all this activity together. Today, the majority of images you will see of women in terms of ad campaigns and in the national press and within fashion shoots are of someone that is 5'8" tall, under 22 or 23, and a size, well, 8-ish is generously proportioned in their terms. So the reason why we've gone down this inclusivity vein, and I think it's the same for men as it is for women, is that our point of reference is starting to disappear and blur. And I sit on the body confidence advisory committee in relation to in relation to the government. And body image is a huge issue, really, in terms of people within the UK, especially children who are growing up with retouched and airbrush models, and looking at images that they think are achievable. When you see the actual model, that model never looked like that in the first place. So this inclusivity thing we started on about 4 years ago. So we bought the Principles brand after it went bust on the high street. Bought the name and introduced it to, this is rather blurred, but there's one of our designers, Ben DeLisi, now designs for Principles. The range went from a size 6 to a size 22. So we wanted to illustrate the inclusivity, really, in terms of the actual product offering. So rather than just shooting it on what I would say are standard models, and we wouldn't shoot on anyone that's below a size 10, we used a petite model and a plus size, and I hate the word plus size. I think it's more your size than plus size. Size 10, yeah, a standard model, but then also we discovered Shannon, who is beautiful but also happens to be in a wheelchair. So we created this campaign shot here, which we released in the form of a press release, and hopefully, looking at that, I hope you don't. Well, I hope your focus point isn't there, but it tends to be here, and then afterwards you notice that she's that Shannon happens to be in a wheelchair. Did the standard press release with this, but then also put that image in all our store windows across the UK. The result of that was that Principles in the past 4 years have probably been our most successful new product launch, purely supported from PR. So there was no above the line spend in terms of advertising. So that set us on a journey from the point of view that it pricked our conscience, but then also the feedback, really, in terms of our customer was universally positive. So from my perspective, it made sense from the point of view that, one, it makes moral sense, but then also it makes commercial sense as well. So we progressed from that to banning airbrushing in relation to lingerie shots. So if someone has got hair down the front of the face like this, we'll take the hair away and just tidy it up. But what we won't do is actually alter body image, actually alter the model's body shape. So you can see on the left-hand side here, the left-hand model is actually her natural body shape, but on the right-hand side, we've accentuated what people do in terms of retouching to illustrate the actual point. So we've shaved off here in terms of her waist, done the same in terms of her legs here. Her bust has been accentuated here. Her arms, you can see, are normal here and have gone a lot thinner here, and the same here. So again, that created a large amount of debate. That piece is actually from the Mail, which there was a full page in the Mail. Loads of noise again in terms of our social media channel. So this is taking us on a journey that continues. The Eliza, the Janet Rager range of lingerie that we've had in our stores for 10 years, had an anniversary coming up. So rather than actually going for a 20-year-old model, we went for a 59-year-old model at the time. So this is Gilly Johnson. So the older ones in your room will probably remember Gilly Johnson from the 70s. Gilly is celebrating her 60th birthday today. That image isn't retouched. So it is about, so you can actually deliver this. Yeah, with that, yeah. She's had extensive plastic surgery, and but she hasn't. No, she hasn't. Well, she's had a bit, but the image as such hasn't. Well, it's not been retouched. moving on from that, we banned retouching in terms of our swimwear shots. We were the first people to our red herring brand is aimed at. I haven't got an example here. Is aimed at 18 to 25-year-olds. So for the lookbook, we shot it in 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and 180-year-old, and the feedback was universally positive, really, in terms of the fashion press. So all this is about agitating and just trying to shake up the rut that I think that many magazines and also high street retailers are stuck in. We followed on from that in relation to our high summer lookbook. So rather than going out and just getting, I don't want to say normal, I want standard models, we looked for a diverse range, really, that reflected well, society a little bit, but then also, I think, hopefully raised eyebrows and also pricked consciences as well. So you can see the Paralympian here. You've got Valerie over here, who is 80. We have the petite model, which you will recognise from here, and she's up there in her swimwear. But then also a plus-size model who is a size, I think she was a size 18 in terms of swimwear. And no one usually shoots models of that size and releases it, really, in terms of imagery. And again, the feedback from our customers was particularly positive, with the products that you can see on these particular news cuttings selling out within a record time. And the latest thing that we've done, so I've had a quite long day today. So I got back from Turkey last night and was at work at 6 o'clock this morning. So we've recently spent £25 million on our store on Oxford Street. If you've seen it before, if anyone that knows the store on Oxford Street, that you would say, yes, it needed £25 million spending on it. Yes, it did need £25 million spending on it. So we have a brand new flagship store, which will launch in about 3 weeks' time. Today, we were the first mainstream retailer to put size 16 mannequins in amongst the size 10 mannequins that were in store. As I say, we work with the government in terms of the body confidence advisory group, which Joe Swinson, the Equalities Minister, heads up. So we work closely with Joe, really, in terms of the photo call this morning, but then also the subsequent news pieces. So I'm delighted to say we were on, and we are on, BBC Breakfast, the 1 o'clock news, the equivalent on ITV, Channel 5, and also the 6 o'clock and also the 10:30 news on both channels this evening. The benefit, we think, hopefully, is about pushing boundaries and making customers feel better about themselves if they need to. It has also raised the profile in relation to the store that the new flagship store that we have on Oxford Street, as all of the pieces that were covered today actually mention this. And to me, I think the word moral often sticks in the words of PRs, but from my perspective, I think this is some of the most important, some of the most valid work that that we've done at Debenhams, and it's the stuff that makes me feel proud when I get up in the morning. I think, really, in terms of what the team has done. It also sells loads and loads of products as well, really. So for the cynical ones among you, that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but and it's these messages on social media and also the traditional media that have the most resonance in terms of our brand. So we had about 10,000 likes today, purely off the back of announcing this through our Facebook channels. Loads of debate on the Mail Online about whether actually she is a size 16, or whether her legs should be a bit fatter, or whether they should be a bit thinner, or whether they should be joined together, or whether she was the right height. But I think this conversation and this debate about the brand, but also about this subject matter, I think really is a fantastic thing.
Just mention
Oh, is it? Right, fine, okay. I need to go to the BBC in a minute, so I'll rattle through this. So the inclusivity element is the one of the things that I think I'm most proud of. I think really, and I think proud from the point of view that that I think sometimes you, as a PR, you need to be brave, but you need to do it with a bit of a safety net. And I think that we've stuck our head above the parapet. When we first launched the Principles campaign, I had my chief exec and my deputy chief exec pacing up and down outside the store, outside Oxford Street, going, "Ed, this better bloody work. This better bloody work." This, and it is about being brave. I think sometimes really in terms of in terms of the brand, and also about pushing boundaries really in terms of the work that we do as PRs, really sort of on a day in day out existence really, I think. So so that's me really in terms of Debenhams.